Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahabushai, Bahasham, BarakahakWadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahabushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who ruled and teach well. And peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video, and in this video I'll be profiling an article from timesofisrael.com titled "Hosting Netanyahu's Trump Warns of Major Mideast Wars, Maybe World War III if he doesn't win." And hey, whether Trump wins, whether knee pads Kamala Harris wins, or if we even get to the presidential elections, one thing is for certain: there will be more Middle Eastern wars, and World War III will take place, because it's all a part of biblical prophecy, and these are the times that we are currently living in. This is Isaiah chapter 34, verse 16. Seek ye out of the book of Yahweh and read. And the book of Yahweh is, of course, the scriptures, what people call the Bible, which includes the Old Testament and the New Testament, and the Apocrypha, which is a part of the Old Testament. No one of these shall fail, none shall want her mate. For my mouth it hath commanded, and his spirit it hath gathered them. And that no one of these shall fail is speaking of these biblical prophecies contained in the scriptures. And none shall want her mate. The Bible is the only, book out there where you can get 144% accuracy of what happened in the past, what's currently happening, and what is about to happen. And what's on the forecast is World War III, which the main part of World War III will take place in the so-called Middle East, really Western Asia. It's going to be known as the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat in Joel chapter 3, the War of Armageddon. This is Revelation chapter 9, verse 12. One woe or destruction is past, referring to World War I. And behold, there come two woes more hereafter. World War II, which is past, and World War III, which is quickly coming upon us. And for all intents and purposes, you can say we're already in the beginning of World War III. But let's get back to that article. Former U.S. President Donald Trump warmly welcomed Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida on Friday for their first meeting since their ties very publicly soured after Trump failed to win re-election in 2020. And those people over in the Holy Land right now, who I'll refer to as the 1948ers, they aren't the true children of the Most High. The true children of Israel are known as the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans today. Those people over there are Edomites, or so-called white people, specifically of the tribe of Amalek, who had that land appointed into their possession through what? The groundwork being set with the Balfour Declaration, and later the 1948er Declaration of Independence in 1948, which you can read about in Ezekiel chapter 36, verse 5, and all Idumea, which is just the Greek way of saying Edom, who have appointed my land into their possession. And ever since then, all the biblical prophecies that would take place when the children of Israel were back in the Holy Land haven't been taking place. One I can think of is Micah chapter 4, verses 1 to 3, where it talks about how there will be no more war when the true children of Israel are back in the Holy Land. And clearly, we see that that's not the case with those 1948ers over there. They had the Arab-Israeli War immediately after the Declaration of Independence. They had the 6 Days War in the 60s. You've had many other wars since then. And World War III hasn't even taken place yet. And also, when Donald Trump was president, he was hailed as the most pro-1948er president out there that would do damn near anything for them. So if he were to be selected to become president again, it looks like he's going to be the one that's going to lead America into, helping the 1948ers in a war against Iran, which is going to spiral out of control and play into the bigger battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat. Because on the side of the 1948ers is going to be America and these other NATO nations, but on the side of the Iranians is going to be nations like Russia, China, and her other allies. And, last week I did a video on how, Benjamin Netanyahu recently went to Congress to give a speech on the threat that Iran posed to them and to America, and how to combat Iran and her allies in the region. And what that is just more saber rattling, pushing for war against Iran. Let me see. Yeah, I'll read this next paragraph. With cameras rolling and flashing, the two men sought to repair what had been seen as one of the closest relationships between leaders when they were in office. Now that Trump is once again the Republican presidential nominee 3 months out of a new election, Trump also charged that the world would see major wars in the Middle East and maybe a third world war if he didn't win the election. As things stand, he further said, you are closer to a third world war than ever because we have incompetent people running our country. Yes, the main point of the article, you get the point. But hey, it's not a possibility, it's an inevitability that again there will be more wars in the Middle East and World War III will take place. And we don't need a DJ Donald Nero, DJ Donald Trump to tell us so. And whoever's in position, hey, it's going to happen. But now let's get back to these precepts. This is Jeremiah chapter 49, verse 20. Therefore, hear the counsel of Yahweh that he had taken against Edom, and his purposes that he hath purposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them. And that least of the flock is speaking of those 1948ers. And like I said earlier, whenever they foment something or some situation happens to where they go to war against Iran, that's going to draw out the U.S. and these NATO nations in on their side. But on the side of Iran, Russia and her other allies. And again, when Trump was president, what did he do? He pulled America out of the Iranian nuclear deal, which was set in place to keep Iran, from more or less, enriching uranium to get a nuclear bomb. But since then, that let Iran know what the end goal is eventually going to be, a war against them. So they've been enriching uranium. And we can pretty much say that even though they haven't publicly said it, they have nuclear capable weapons. Why? Because as it says in Ezekiel chapter 38, Gog or Russia has been a guard unto them, and Russia has definitely been supplying them with military and other assistance. That's those hooks being put into Russia's jaws, as it says in Ezekiel, I think 38 verse 3, which is them being brought back into that old confrontational Soviet Union spirit. These major nations are about to bump heads with each other, and that least the flock is doing its job to draw them out. This is Joel chapter 2 verse 20. But I will remove far off from you the northern army, speaking of the North American army, the United States military, all branches, the Army, the Navy, the Marines, the Air Force, etc., and will drive him into a land barren and desolate. That so-called Middle Eastern region, really Western Asia. And the main staging ground for the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat is going to be Saudi Arabia, which has always been the main staging ground for America's wars in the Middle East, with his face toward the East Sea. And when you look at a map of the Middle East, what's to the east of Saudi Arabia? The Persian Gulf, which above that is, Iran. And then to the northeast, you've got the Tigris, Euphrates rivers, which, Slakia, I think I said Iran, I meant Iraq. So to the northeast is Iraq, and the U.S. has a military presence there right now. And also, in his hinder part, or behind him toward the utmost sea, which is speaking of the Red Sea, where the U.S.'s Navy is currently engaged in, fighting with the Houthi rebels who, are funded by Iran. And his stink shall come up, and his ill savor shall come up, because he had done great things. And there's going to be a great slaughter of U.S. military personnel in, the Valley of Jehoshaphat when the War of Armageddon, takes place. And I read this verse, and, you should just know from common knowledge that whatever happens with the state of the 1948ers, America is going to be the first one to come to their aid, because America is nothing more than a puppet to the 1948ers. As we just read in that article, Trump has been seen as the most pro-1948er, president out there. And during Netanyahu's congressional speech, a lot of those politicians were clapping hands for him and saying that, look, this is a battle against civilization and uncivilization, not even a civilization, referring to Iran and her allies. And then I think a couple of months ago, you had that chicken hawk, Lindsey Graham, say that if Iran does anything against the 1948ers, we should bomb their oil fields and just bomb them. So America has all her chips in, to help the 1948ers whenever anything sparks off. But now I'm going to go back to Isaiah chapter 34, but I'm going to read the first two verses, because like I've been saying throughout the video, all these different political and military maneuvers are leading ultimately to the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat. And the header reads, God's wrath against the nations, the heathen nations. Come near, ye nations, to hear, and hearken, ye people. Let the earth hear, and all that is therein, the world and all things that come forth of it. For the indignation of Yahweh is upon all nations, and his fury upon all their armies. He hath utterly destroyed them, he hath delivered them to the slaughter. Remember what it said in Joel chapter 2, verse 20, and his stink shall come up, and his ill savor shall come up. There's going to be a great slaughter of U.S. military personnel, as well as all these other heathens as militaries, because as it just said, for the indignation of Yahweh is upon all nations for the controversy of Zion, for these heathen nations that have confederated themselves against the nation of Israel, as it says in Psalms chapter 83, to cut them off from their identity, to cut them off from being a nation. And at the top of that list are you Edomites. And it also mentions you Amalekite Edomites who helped, you were the main funder of the transatlantic slave trade, which brought the Southern Kingdom, or the so-called Negroes from the west coast of Africa, to the Americas. And then you had the Northern Kingdom, which was already here in America, the so-called Latinos and Native Americans who had their land stolen from them, and they were raped and murdered during colonization, put into slavery, and a lot of them, were sent to other parts of the planet as well. But this is Joel chapter 3. I'm going to start at verse 1. And what does it say? The nations will be judged. Just like the header in Isaiah 34 said, God's wrath upon the nations. For behold, in those days and in that time, which we're currently living in, the last days, really the last seconds of the last days, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah, the southern kingdom, and Jerusalem, the northern kingdom, the elect of all 12 tribes waking up and coming back to their power, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Yahweh being the true name of the Heavenly Father, and Yahweh Shai being the true name of his Son, whom the world ignorantly refers to as so-called Jesus. I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, which in the Hebrew is Yahweh Shaphat, or Yahweh's judgment, and I will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage, Israel. Hey, the Lord's indignation upon these heathens, the controversy of Zion, whom they have scattered amongst the nations, the transatlantic slave trade, and parted my land, and all Idumea, which have appointed my land into their possession. The Holy Land right now has those 1948ers fighting against what? Those Palestinian Arabs, so-called Arabs, because they're really Ishmaelites, which, the Gaza Hamas war. Now you've got, Israel having friction with Hezbollah and Lebanon, just war. But eventually, all those squatters are about to be evicted from that land. Their grace period is almost up. Verse 3, and have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for an harlot, and sold a girl for wine, that they might drink. Our people being sold into slavery and being seen as nothing more than commodities, animals, beasts of burden. But now I'm going to jump down to verse 9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war against Iran, World War III, the battle in the valley of Jehoshaphat, the war of Armageddon. Wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen. The United States of America, the 1948ers, Iran, Russia, China, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, the NATO nations, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Yahweh, and those mighty ones are the death angels of the Most High, holding back this great destruction, waiting to get the go-ahead to release it, which is mainly going to happen after the mark of the Beast in Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 to 18, which is the RFID/NFC C-hip implant is mandatorily implemented, which we can see that's right around the corner. Verse 12, let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, for there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come get you down, for the press is full. The fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of Yahweh is near in the valley of decision. And just like Donald Trump said, if I don't win, there's going to be wars in the Middle East and probably World War III. Well, through biblical prophecy, we're here to tell you that no matter who wins, there will be war in the Middle East, the battle in the valley of Jehoshaphat, and it will be, the main part of World War III. So that's it with this video. With this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. We're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.
Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahabushai, Bahasham, Barakahak Wadash, Barakatum. Shalom Akim. This is just a quick addendum to this video because, a lot, has just happened dealing, over with the land of Israel and all the enemies surrounding those Amalekite Edomites, which, further plays in, to the first part of this video where Trump said that if he didn't win, there would be more wars in the Middle East in World War III. But this is an article from timesofisrael.com. Turkey's Erdogan issues open threat to invade Israel. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan threatens to invade Israel in support of the Palestinians. We must be very strong so that Israel can't do these things to Palestine, says Erdogan, one of the most bitter critics of Israel on the international stage, referring to the war against Hamas in Gaza. And, like I brought out earlier in the video, that the least of the flock, those Amalekite Edomites, are going to draw out these other nations down into the Valley of Jehoshaphat for the War of Armageddon. And Turkey is going to be a part of one of those nations that's going to be on the side of Russia and Iran. This is Ezekiel chapter 38. I'm going to start at verse 2 and jump around a bit. Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, speaking of Russia, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. Now I'm going to jump down to verse 5, going into the allies of Gog or Russia. Persia, which is the ancient name for Iran, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer, which is speaking of Turkey, and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. Verse 7, be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. Russia being a guard unto these smaller nations. Verse 8, after many days thou shalt be visited. In the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword and is gathered out of many people. And this is speaking, the land of Israel. And those Amalekite Edomites were, gathered out of these different nations, mainly Eastern Europe, into the land of Israel, against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste. And ever since the true children of Israel were taken out of that land, the Holy Land has been a desert. Hence why they got to fly in trees and waters and build up infrastructure so that it can sustain itself in the desert, when the true children of Israel, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, beginning with the elect, are back in that land. Hey, it's going to flourish again, become a paradise. But it is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them. And hey, for the longest time, those Amalekite Edomites had been dwelling safely because they had, their military might to fight against these Arab nations surrounding them, and they had the United States of America at their back. But as we're coming to the end of Esau's rulership, hey, they're not dwelling so safely right now. Verse 9, thou shalt ascend and come like a storm, speaking of Gog or Russia, and all those nations that are gathered under her, including Turkey. Thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land, thou and all thy bands, and many people with thee. Point blank period. Verse 10, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, it shall also come to pass that at the same time shall things come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought. Hey, to come against the land of Israel and to also come against the United States of America. Verse 11, and thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages. I will go to them that are at rest and dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gates. And, that's talking about the United States of America, which literally doesn't have any walls. And what has Trump's whole campaign been? Build the wall, build the wall. And, it can also be talking about the land of Israel right now. And they do have, border walls and stuff. But, they have been dwelling, safely and carelessly because what? They had the Iron Dome system, which for decades they have been saying was impenetrable. And we see with Iran's attack on them a couple of months ago, that's not the case. To take a spoil and to take a prey, to turn thine hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited. Speaking of the land of Israel, that land that was a waste, and upon the people that are gathered out of the nations, those Amalekite Edomites, which have gotten cattle and goods that dwell in the midst of the land. So as we can see, biblical prophecy just continues to take place as we speak. All the major players for World War III are getting moved into their positions. But now I'm going to go to this article on CNN.com. Fears of Israel-Hezbollah war grow after Golan Heights strike that killed 12 children. Fears grow of a wider war between Israel and Hezbollah after a rocket attack in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights that killed 12 children. Israel blames Hezbollah for the attack and said the militant group will pay the price. And who funds, Hezbollah? Iran. So, hey, Israel, clearly they want to go against Hezbollah, in Lebanon to their north, and they damn sure want to go against Iran. Again, Netanyahu had that speech in Congress the other week talking about how Israel and America need to come up with new plans to deal with the Iranian threat in the region, as well as Iranians' allies in the region, Hezbollah, the Houthis, etc., etc. The Security Cabinet authorized PM Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant to decide on the nature and timing of the response against Hezbollah. Lebanon says it received reassurances from third countries that Israel's response would be limited. Hezbollah firmly denies it was behind the strike, the deadliest to hit Israel or Israeli-controlled territory since the October 7th Hamas attacks. Several European countries have reiterated calls for their citizens to urgently leave Lebanon. And I'm going to read this one. White House says Israel has right to respond to Golan Heights attack. Worries of broader war exaggerated. The Biden administration said Monday that Israel has a right to respond to the attack in the Golan Heights that killed a dozen children on Saturday, and it believed fears the attack could lead to a broader war were exaggerated. But hey, this is just another stepping stone towards that broader war. And if anything happens to the 1948ers, the Northern Army, as it said in Joel chapter 2, verse 20, is going to come to their defense. So yeah, I just wanted to add this quick update, addendum to the video I just did on Trump talking about wars in the Middle East in World War III. So hopefully you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. And again, as always, I'm gonna say give all praises to Yahweh Bahashem Yahabashai, and say Abad Babol and Kwam Yasharala.